Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Inside Lowell podcast. I am your host, 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪, coming to you from the WellPoint Studios here in downtown Lowell. WellPoint is the only health plan offering benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. And we thank our friends at WellPoint for helping to make this special podcast possible, along with all of our podcast sponsors. They include the Washington Savings Bank, make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank, TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Boston North Company, business solutions for restaurant and retail. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection since 1925. Francis E. Preventure Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell has counted on for over 4 decades, and by the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. And with that, I'd like to welcome in my special guest for this podcast. She is the Republican candidate seeking the state Senate seat in the 1st Middlesex District, which encompasses us here in the city of Lowell and also the town of 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 in our coverage area, along with 4 other communities. And she's joining us here in the WellPoint Studios. Karla Miller is with us. How are you, Karla? Thanks for being here.
Good, Teddy. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Good.
We chatted months ago when you first declared your candidacy, and here we sit on October 17th. It's the day we're recording this interview, and we were, we're down to the nitty-gritty now. People are actually voting. Mail-in ballots are going back and forth throughout the post office. Early voting starts Saturday in Lowell and the surrounding communities. And of course, election day is on November 5th. So I'm going to ask you again, how you doing? It must be a fun yet exhausting experience at the same time.
It is. It's exhausting. It's difficult to do. That's why I think a lot of people don't run. But I hope that we can make a good showing this time, the Republicans, and I hope that it will encourage more people to run. There's one thing I want to point out, because, if someone wants to check out my website, they may think I spell my name with a C. It is with a K. So my website is Karla Miller for statesenate.com, and it does encompass Lowell, 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪😂, Tyngsboro, Dunstable, and Pepperell.
Okay. And we'll make sure we get that out again at the end. We're going to give you an opportunity to also do a closing statement, a final pitch to the voters who are watching this. And we're going to run through a number of the issues that I've lined up here that I think are important to me and to a lot of voters out there. But I want to start by giving you a chance to talk about what issues do you think are the most important issues affecting the 1st Middlesex District as we sit here today?
Okay. We have a lot of issues, but I don't think that it matters right now in the state, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or unaffiliated voter. We're all suffering from the same things. And one of them is high taxes, high inflation, and the high cost of living in Massachusetts. I don't know if you've heard, but we jumped to #1 in the country for the most expensive state to live in for a family of 4. And we're always in the top 3 or 4 for high taxes, high inflation, and it's unacceptable. And we've been accepting this for years. And, my goal is to get us on a path to make this state affordable, because it should be affordable. I mean, we have, to be always in the top for all of these means that this state is not being run right. And, I don't believe that we should leave the politicians that created these problems in charge of solving the problems. We need leaders. We need new leaders with common sense. We need leaders that are going to look at the big picture. Every time you make a decision on an issue, you should look at the big picture, meaning what's going to happen if I make this decision, what's going to happen down the road. And I don't think that they ever consider that. If you look at all the issues we have, they never seem to get solved. So I think we need people that are with common sense that are going to do that, and we need to stop the reckless spending as well. in this state. It's out of control.
Okay.
And we need an audit. We definitely need an audit.
All right. Well, we're going to touch on all those and a few other things. You mentioned affordability really sounds like that is your main issue. And that's something I've seen you talk about a lot. You've sent out a number of press releases regarding that. A lot of your campaign literature that you're mailing centers around affordability. And I think folks will agree it's getting less and less affordable to live here in the Commonwealth. So what are some ways that you can make Massachusetts more affordable? How do we make the state more affordable for the middle classes and lower classes without like taking a significant step backward in our standard of living? Because we do have a very high standard of living here in Massachusetts, or at least we've come to expect one.
Right. Well, I think an audit is going to help us with that, to see where's all the money going. But aside from that, the first thing we have to do that is affecting the amount of money that's going out the door right now is we have to solve this immigration problem. Okay, so what we did was we enticed people to come to this state, not being prepared for all the problems that were going to come with having more people in the state. We already had a housing crisis. So what did we do? We made it worse. And what's the answer to that? What was the plan? I don't know. I haven't heard what their plan is to fix this problem, because right now we've spent $1 billion in tax money. There's $1 billion earmarked, and it's expected that we're going to be spending $1 billion every year on the same problem. And that's just, it's not sustainable. I don't think it's fair to the taxpayers in this state. I don't think it's fair to the people, the immigrants that have come here. They're expecting the American dream, and there's no place for them to even live. And even if they're lucky enough to learn how to speak English, to get a job, the job that they are going to be able to get is not going to pay them well enough to find a place to live. It's just not possible. So that it was, it was a bad idea. We need to get rid of the sanctuary, sanctuary cities. We have one sanctuary city and we have 7 sanctuary towns, and we need to stop that. It hasn't worked. It's a bad policy.
One of the areas that folks have talked about the migrant immigrant issue affecting affordability is affordable housing. It's really one of the top topics that you hear throughout the state, throughout the country for that matter. What policies would you like to see enacted that would address it, both kind of in the immediate situation now, where you're right, we have a bunch of folks who have come in and we already had a housing shortage, but this problem seems like it's going to continue to get worse. At some point, the hotels and the temporary / emergency shelters that a lot of the migrants have been put up in are going to go away, we think. What can be done to address the fact that folks are already here and we have to find a way to house them?
Well, with the affordable housing, our legislature, and including Ed Kennedy, voted for more affordable housing, yet put more regulations on building, which doesn't make any sense to me. Right now, the regulations for building new construction are so expensive that it just doesn't work. And so what I would say is that we need to take some of the people that are here, and we have to figure out whether they can stay here or not stay here. So I would start with deporting the criminals. And that's a whole other subject that I don't know if you want to get into, but we need to start just deporting the criminals, and we need to figure out who's here, because we don't seem to know that. Who's here, and if they came here without identification, I think that's a problem. Because if you had identification and now you come here and you are, without it, then I don't think you belong in this country, because I think you may be hiding something. So the people that are here that really need to have left their country and would are trying to gain asylum in this state, we won't have the money to keep supporting them if they're all grouped with these people that aren't going to get asylum here. So we need to start deporting and help the people that, need to be here. So that would cut down on a lot of housing right there, I believe.
So it sounds like you're saying there's a significant number of folks who are a part of a criminal element and that you would start by deporting them. Those who haven't been committing crimes and can be verified in some way, shape, or form as just being families trying to find a better life. How do we deal with them? Should there be some level of deportation there based on needs, jobs? What do you do with those that have already come in? Because a lot have already.
Right. Well, we need to figure out the number. I'm not saying that a lot of them are criminals, but we don't know that. And that's the part about all of this that upsets me, is that we're the taxpayers, we are the citizens of this state, and we don't have this information. Are they being vetted? Do we know where they're being vetted? Do we have any information? So it's hard to come up with a solution when we don't really know what the numbers are. And so I would like to see the people that, have that really do need help to get help. But I would like to see the people that have come here with bad intentions. I think they should be deported.
Okay. I want to turn to the ballot questions, the 5 ballot questions that folks are going to be voting on as well this November or beforehand in early voting, because I think this year's ballot questions, more than anything, help at least me identify kind of where somebody stands from a political ideology perspective. I really think these are kind of the perfect questions to give you an idea of where they are. So I think it's important that folks who want to serve or have been serving kind of address these. So question 1, audit the legislature. Now, you mentioned that you'd like to see the legislature audited. Should it be audited by the state auditor who's pushing for that, or can it be done internally or by some other agency? Who should? You already said
the state
we should audit the legislature.
The state auditor.
So you're a full-blown yes on question 1.
Yeah.
Why do you believe she should audit them rather than what the House Speaker, Senate President, and others are telling you now that we've been doing it this way forever?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't think they can be trusted. They either, don't know how to run the state. They don't, or they're running it in a way that is benefiting the party, because look at where we are, Yeah.
Simple enough. Question 2, eliminating the MCAS as a graduation requirement. Are you a yes or a no on that?
I am a no on that because there's nothing to replace it. And you have to have some standards. You have to have some way. And I think it benefits the children that are, either going to graduate or not. To graduate someone that shouldn't be, that doesn't have enough knowledge to go on from there, is not a good thing. So I don't think it really benefits anyone at this time. If they come up with something else to replace it, then that would be a different story. Okay.
Question 3, allowing rideshare drivers, Uber, Lyft, whatever other companies are out there, to unionize. Should they have that option?
I think, I'm going to vote no on that. From what I understand, it's not beneficial to them either to do that.
Okay. Question 4, legalizing certain psychedelic drugs.
No, I don't think so. Okay. I don't think so. I think that, if it's going to help someone, then a prescription should be given for it.
Okay. And question 5, eliminate the tipped employee wage.
No. Eliminate the tip.
Eliminate the tipped wage.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that you can speak to that. But I believe that that the restaurant business is going to be in a lot of trouble if that question passes, because people that own restaurants like yourself may not be able to afford to pay their employees. Not to mention, if you're a good server, you're making a lot more than that anyway. I think there's a law on the books that says that if you work a shift and you don't make minimum wage, then you are supposed to be you're supposed to be getting minimum wage on that, for that shift.
Correct. The
So I
employer
think
is
that
responsible
covers,
to get you to
right.
$15 per hour if for some
So
reason you don't get there in tips.
I think that covers that. I'd really like to know where this came from, because I don't understand the motivation behind it.
I have my theories. That's for a different podcast,
Okay, all right,
which we dedicate to that question.
All right.
So just to summarize, Karla Miller, Republican Senate candidate, yes on question 1, no on 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
Okay. Let's just talk a little bit about taxes. And state tax collections have consistently missed the benchmarks over the last couple of years, which leads me to believe either the budget is setting unreasonable it leads me to believe the budget, they're setting unreasonable targets for tax revenues. Is that because people aren't paying their fair share? Is it because Beacon Hill is spending too much?
I think it's because Beacon Hill is spending too much. And if you look at, not to get off on the subject of climate change, but if you look at because I heard that, we're going in the wrong direction with that also. So to spend all this money to try to change the climate, and this seems to be being pushed more by politicians than it does by scientists and climatologists. So we're going full speed ahead in this state to put all this money into this effort and to purchase more wind turbines that don't work all the time and are very expensive, and they're expensive to maintain, and now they're falling apart. And so if you find that something's not working, then why would you keep spending money on it? There are other options out there that, don't want to get into that at this point, but we need to put together people that know about all these things. You can't, politicians should not always think that they're the expert on everything. And that's one of the wasteful things that I think we're doing in this state right now. And so those are all the things we have to look at, and the audit, I think, will bring up, other things that we're wasting money on.
Okay. You've kind of hit on my next 2 questions. I was going to ask you about the rising energy costs, and whether they're due to the fact that we're going too green too quickly, as some people would say, which I believe you just said, or that we've left ourselves at the mercy of fossil fuel companies and we need to move away from that. I think we have our answer there from you anyway.
Yeah, and just to elaborate, we need to put the brakes on it till we figure out what is the best path forward. And I've listened to different people, climatologists, business people, farmers. There's a lot to learn about the subject, and also you have to also think about, if we do it, is India ever going to do it? Is Russia ever going to do it? Is China ever going to do it? Because according to John Kerry, if they don't, then it's not really going to matter much. So we have to figure it out in this country, but I would say that right now we're wasting money on it.
Okay. You mentioned the migrant crisis and the housing for them earlier. I was going to ask about the right to shelter law, which has been in the books forever, and it was meant for specifically, really, when it was first passed, I believe it was for battered women, abused women who needed somewhere to be to get out of that abusive relationship. Okay. It's now kind of come to encompass anybody that needs a home, including the migrants. Should right to shelter be eliminated, amended, or left as is? Is it working as is?
No, it needs to be overhauled. And I thought that it was originally put in place when when we started shuttering the the institutions that we called them back then, those facilities, and that was for the people that were mentally ill that ended up on the street. But whatever, it's for people that need housing. And I do want to say that one of the there were a couple of bills that had amendments that the Democrats, and including Ed Kennedy, voted against making veterans and citizens of this state a priority when it comes to emergency housing. And that, to me, that says it all. I mean, this state, this country, we are very generous when it comes to helping people from other countries, but where does it end? And at one point do you get where no one's benefiting anymore? Where everybody's kind of, the middle class is doesn't exist anymore. The people that are aspiring to be middle class, can't get there. In this state, everything's it's too expensive, and we're just going in the wrong direction.
Okay. Let's turn to the legislature. Why does it always seem to be scrambling at the last minute to pass either a budget or other important bills? And we saw once again this past summer, we saw a couple of instances of that happening, the late night scrambling, the 3 a.m., 4 a.m. votes. Why is the legislature not getting its business done in a timely manner?
Well, that's a good question. And I think that it may be because they're either not agreeing, which, I've heard something to that effect, that they're not agreeing on things, or they're not putting the time in throughout the whole year and then waiting until they have to cram everything in. I don't know how often they go into, the State House. I don't know how many hours they put in, but I don't think there's any excuse for not having the job done when it's supposed to be done. And there's, very little transparency. So it's another mystery as to, because we just don't know. We don't know why all this is happening, but we know one thing: it shouldn't be happening.
Let's talk about if you get your wish and the voters put you into office. Regardless of what happens, regardless how good of a night it is for your party in other parts of the state, you're going to be in a very, very small minority in the Massachusetts Senate. How are you going to be able to change some of these issues that you talked about? How can you be an effective legislator for the 1st Middlesex District, given that even under the most optimistic projections, you'd be serving in such a small minority? What's your strategy for that?
Well, my strategy is to speak to every senator that's in office, to sit down with them, to find out why they vote the way they do, and to remind them that these policies that these progressive policies that are not helping our state but are bringing our state to the point where people can't live here anymore. Not to mention if we go into the safety issue, how we're not, there's a lot of things that that are happening in the state where we're not as safe as we used to be. So I would like to remind them that their policies are going to affect them at some point, that they're going to be victims of their own policies at some point. But I want to try to work with them, but I need to understand them first. I need to figure out, why are they doing this? Because there are, a lot of people say that, what they do is they just all vote the same way because that's the best thing for the party, and it's their best chance of making more money, getting a chairmanship, getting more people to work for them, that kind of thing. And I certainly hope that that's not the case.
Okay. There seems to be some contradictory actions being taken when it comes to crime and public safety here in the Commonwealth. On the one hand, Massachusetts already has some of the strictest gun laws in America, and yet there's a push to have even more. The governor just signed an executive order that made gun rights activists lose their minds. On the other hand, there's a push towards eliminating enforcement of certain crimes, increasing the age of being a minor, for instance, in committing a crime, and not to mention multiple prisons have been closed. In general, where do you stand on gun rights, public safety, and criminal justice reform?
Well, once again, this doesn't make sense to me. Okay, I think it's very scary that we're closing prisons. I think that that we have to concentrate on getting the guns away from the criminals. To take the guns away from law-abiding citizens is not the way to go. It doesn't make sense, and I think what it does is it makes more people go out and buy guns, because they're afraid that they won't be able to get a gun at some point, and then they're also afraid of, what's happening with more criminals being let go. So, you get arrested, and there's no cash bail. None of this makes sense to me. We're it's like we're promoting, or we're letting people know it's okay, do whatever you want, because you're not going to get punished for it. And we've ended up with judges that, won't punish people. So who's going to get punished? The law-abiding citizens are the ones that are going to get punished with all these, progressive policies. And these are some of the things that I want to ask these senators. Do you think that nothing can happen to you? Do you think that you're not going to be affected by these policies at some point? I think we all are.
Okay. Final question. What's the first bill you'll file if you're elected? Have you thought about this yet?
I have. There's so many. I think the most important issues right now are, solving the crisis with the immigrants in a compassionate way. Solving the homeless crisis is a big one, because I think there's an answer to that, and that answer has to do with mental illness, and we're completely ignoring that. We were ignoring it in the state, we're ignoring it in the country. And so, to me, one of the worst things that you can see is someone living on the street, in the winter, someone freezing cold. I mean, to me, it's inhumane. Along with the migrant crisis, I think that how these people got here, what's happening with them when they get here, which is some of the migrant crime is so unnecessary, and those are the things that really bother me, that I really think that need to be fixed, along with making the state affordable. That's up there too. Those are my top three.
Okay. I know I mentioned last question, but I do want to follow up, because it was interesting that you said the homeless issue, especially where it involves mental illness. This has been a big battle here in the city of Lowell, and it gets fought every week on the city council floor and elsewhere. And yet, short of forcing some folks who don't want to live get into some treatment facilities because of the rules that apply in those facilities, specifically against substance use, short of forcing confinement on them, is there anything that the state can do? Is there anything that you as an individual legislator can do?
Absolutely. If we do not build or renovate facilities to house the mentally ill, the drug addicted, and the alcohol addicted, then we're not going to solve the problem. So the two places come to mind: Tewksbury State Hospital and the Concord Prison. So if we were to, I would suggest, let's be the test state for this, because it's a problem in a lot of states. let's you hope, maybe get government funding, federal government funding, and let's say renovate Tewksbury State Hospital, because what I want to see is I want to see a facility that has land, not pavement, not a parking lot, be surrounded by a parking lot. I want to see a facility that, for instance, Tewksbury farmland, also Concord, where people can go and they can be productive, and they can also learn a trade. We have a lot of contractors out there, retired contractors, retired plumbers, retired carpenters, and we need those people. So why not put them together? And so if if you're mentally ill, first of all, there has to be a decision made as to whether you have to stay in the facility, or you can be, medication can help your mental illness. And these are programs that can't be a week, 2 weeks, a month. They need to be at least 6 months, unless someone really, um, gets there a lot quicker. But we need to help them so that when the ones that can leave are less apt to come back, because now they've learned a trade, and they can go out and get a job and get a place to live. But while they're there, I think that we need to have ways for them to be productive, whether it's farming or, and they need to have an atmosphere where they can go outside and, and that's my idea. I've felt strongly about that for a long time. I did look into the homeless problem in the city. I talked to people that feed the homeless in the churches, feed the homeless, go around to the camps and feed the homeless. And I think that the reason why, some of the reasons why they don't want to go into the facilities that are available to them now is because the ones that are mentally ill, they don't know what's good for them. They don't understand. Or they don't want to go into the facility because there are, they steal each other's things, or, there's a lot of reasons why they don't want to.
Okay. Thank you for answering my questions. I want to give you an opportunity, a couple of minutes here, to speak directly to the voters of the first Middlesex District.
Right.
Your closing statement, for lack of a better term, Karla Miller.
Okay, I'm gonna read this so I can get through it pretty quickly. But so my name is Karla Miller, and I am not a career politician. I'm running for office because I believe that Massachusetts is on the wrong path. Our freedoms are at stake, and I believe it is imperative that we have a fair and balanced legislature in the Commonwealth. And now, I don't believe now is our time to surrender. I am running for state senate, as I talked about, in the first Middlesex District. I believe the people of the Commonwealth do not deserve to be taken advantage of and kept in the dark. We are tired of the left-wing supermajority and their dangerous progressive policies that I believe are destroying our way of life in this state. We need to eliminate the sanctuary policies that are taking resources away from our veterans, homeless, and families in need. I also want to mention that our communities are being forced to build MBTA housing that will overburden our cities and towns, all while the Democrat majority, including Ed Kennedy, as I mentioned, voted against our making veterans and citizens a priority for emergency housing. Massachusetts is grappling with persistent revenue shortfalls stemming from irresponsible spending and lofty government initiatives with no resolution in sight. All while decisions are being made behind closed doors. While residents' pocketbooks are shrinking, the state budget is bloating, which I know we talked about a lot of these things. But as your state senator, I would prioritize the well-being of Massachusetts residents over the interest of the government. And we need to take our state back, is what we need to do. And we need to attract more businesses by cutting regulations and taxes that will help our existing businesses to thrive, not drive them out of the state. We need to improve our schools, healthcare, infrastructure, and for heaven's sake, solve the homeless problem. And I promise to represent the needs of the first Middlesex District by providing common sense and fiscally responsible solutions to the issues that are facing this state. I look forward to making the Commonwealth of Massachusetts a place people want to live, not leave. And I want to make Massachusetts affordable and accountable to everyone. And I will also work diligently to achieve a brighter future by preserving our freedoms in this state. So that sums
All
it
right.
up. And I respectfully ask for people's votes. And
All right. And if folks, if they require more information about your candidacy than we
Right.
gave here, what is your web address one more time?
so it's Karla with a K, Karla Miller for statesenate.com. And my phone number's on there in a couple of places, my email. So feel free to either call me, email me, and feel free to donate. Yeah.
All right. Karla Miller, Republican candidate in the 1st Middlesex State Senate District. Thanks for joining us today. Good luck
Okay,
with the
well, thanks
campaign.
for having
We'll talk
me.
to you election night.
All right. Thank you, Teddy.
All right. Thank you. Thank all of you for joining us here as well. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about where Ms. Miller stands on the issues. And if you haven't made up your mind yet, if you haven't headed out to vote, perhaps this interview helped you do it. We should mention that we have also reached out to Senator Kennedy's office, and hopefully we'll be conducting a similar interview in the coming days, and we'll get that one uploaded on all of our Inside Lowell outlets as well. Until next time, I'm Teddy Panos signing off here from the WellPoint Studios. Stay safe, everybody.